Today, I'm going to be talking about how you can work on changing your internal narrative in order to help you deal with anxiety. Do you think that your anxiety is preventing you from taking new challenges? Do you think that your anxiety is preventing you from starting new hobbies or maybe starting new relationships? If the answer is yes, then what might be happening is that you are not scared only of that specific challenge, but you already predicting negative outcome of what's gonna happen if you were to take up that challenge. Therefore, we might be also afraid of that self-negative judgment that we might be having towards ourselves if the task or challenge doesn't go as planned. Then, because of catastrophizing and the fear, we might be avoiding that certain challenge, that certain activity, not giving ourselves chance to see how we're gonna do at it, and also not giving ourselves a chance to maybe make mistakes and to get better at it. So then what might happen is that you just avoid the task till you can, or you just avoid it completely, and that actually it is nothing else than procrastination. Let's take an example of someone who's terrified of interviews, and because of that they are actually stuck in job that they hate for years and years. And this itself is causing them a lot of stress, a lot of discomfort. But eventually they apply for the job, they go for the interview. The interview doesn't go that great. So maybe they are very nervous, they shake, maybe they forget half of the answer to one of the questions. But the person did it. However, we can imagine that many people, and you might be one of them, can be very self-critical about outcomes of that sort of interview. However, in situations like this, when you're struggling specifically with something, but you're still going ahead and you're doing it, you need to praise yourself for doing it, even though it was hard. Another way of changing the internal narrative that is causing us to feel all this anxiety about attending the interview is to recognize when we start catastrophizing. So this might sound something like, I'm gonna only get nervous, it's gonna go horribly wrong, I'm gonna forget half of my answers, I'm gonna only humiliate myself. They most likely have hundreds of people who are better than me for this position. So once you recognize that you're catastrophizing, we can then develop a more balanced way of looking at this scenario. And this might be something like, even if the interview doesn't go as perfectly as I would like it to go, there's still a chance that I might get the job. And if I don't get the job, that is actually quite understandable because I actually haven't done interview in the past 8 years. I could actually treat this interview as a great chance to practice how to answer certain questions and also to learn what potential questions they might come up in my next interviews. This way of changing your internal narrative actually can become a very powerful tool for you, and especially when that's gonna become a habit for you. Obviously, this is only one example of interview and negative narrative. However, there are gonna be, I'm sure, many other situations in your life when you start maybe catastrophizing and having all these negative narratives that then are triggering for you a lot of anxiety. So first of all, you will have to notice what is that negative catastrophizing narrative in that specific scenario that is causing you to feel anxiety. And then you will have to start working on developing new, more balanced way of thinking about the situation. Working on your negative narrative, it is not one of an example, but it is an ongoing process of actually noticing where those negative narratives are, how they are impacting you, and also then trying to change them into a more balanced way of looking at the specific situation. What I think is also important to add at this point, that in those situations when we are very self-critical about certain situations, as it is with, for example, the interview situation, we actually start self-blaming and we start feeling shame. Shame has been shown in research as a very destructive emotion. However, we need shame in our life, but at the right time and at the right place. So for instance, if we cause some sort of harm to someone, we need to feel shame Otherwise, we wouldn't go and apologize. We wouldn't reflect and think what we did was wrong, and maybe in the future that wouldn't be a good thing to do it again. But as it is with all emotions, sometimes we just get confused and we start experiencing them, or we start experiencing shame at the wrong time or at the wrong place. And what's problematic with experiencing shame, for instance, in the situation with the interview, is that by experiencing shame, we then tend to avoid, we tend to deny what the actual issue is. So we deny that we feel anxiety, then we feel ashamed that the interview didn't go as well, that we didn't get the job. Instead of feeling shame at this point, it is more helpful to actually recognize what has happened. So recognize that, yes, I'm actually struggling with anxiety. I felt really anxious during the interview. I felt really nervous. Because of that, I forgot half of my answers. Because of that, I really sweat. Because of the anxiety, I was so self-conscious that I couldn't really focus on what I was saying. In this instance, it is about recognizing that you're feeling anxious because you're doing something which is difficult for you. You're doing something which is outside of your comfort zone. In this way, we're normalizing anxiety. We're coming to terms with it. We're creating less resistance. Therefore, there is less space then for shame. In summary, we can say that when you start working on challenging your anxiety, it might be more important to focus on what you're doing rather than how you feel about it. So if you're exposing yourself to maybe going for interviews and that triggers a lot of anxiety in you, it is more important to focus on that, yes, I did it, even though it's hard for me, but I did it. The fact that maybe I was nervous, that maybe it didn't go that well, is not as important. When you're approaching tasks that are triggering a lot of anxiety in you, it is expected that you're not gonna do that great at them. But there is also a chance that with time, the more you're gonna practice, the more you're gonna expose yourself to those tasks, your anxiety gonna drop, and then as a result you're gonna end up with better outcome. We could also say that the initial goal for you, it might be about actually getting started, facing the anxiety, and then coping with the anxiety once you get started. Here I could use an example of my first cringy videos that I've uploaded to this channel. And for weeks and weeks I was uploading these videos that they were very poor quality, and obviously I was very uncomfortable when I was recording them, and even though they were poor quality, I was still uploading them, so I didn't buy into my self-criticism. And obviously with time I started feeling more comfortable with recording them, and I hope that actually this is reflected in the quality of my videos now. If you can think of any examples where maybe you challenge your anxiety in a similar way, then please let me know about it in a comment section, and maybe if you're happy about it, I could use those examples in my future videos. So that will be it for today, and yes, if you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you, bye bye.